Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back here to my channel where I play PineHut Zoo. My name is Nisse, and first of all today guys, I've kind of built something I really didn't think I was going to, so therefore I cheated a bit because I didn't know if this was possible to make this path down here. It's going behind the artwork habitat and then in here under the path in the last habitat in the main building that we really haven't built yet. So yeah, it's possible, so therefore you can see I cheated a bit, but I'm pretty sure you can see what I did build. I'm really proud of the new thinking I did here. Basically, I haven't done anything like it before, I think, and I really like the way it works here. You're probably a bit confused because this is a completely lower habitat. There's a long way down here, but it's because we are building for the Fossa and they do climb a lot, so therefore I would like the guests to be able to see them climb around rather than just standing on the ground. My initial idea in here was to have this as one big habitat and then doing the same as I did in the South American habitat, where I went in and did the water in this corner. The thing is that I didn't really find that many water-loving animals to put in here for my Madagascar habitat. So therefore I just added this Fossa area instead, and I personally think it works very well. Once again, I didn't really plan to make a habitat for the Fossa, but also because I really fell in love with the mud when I looked at it. I just wanted to spend the week dedicated to Madagascar and animal, but I didn't think about making a Fossa habitat. I just wanted to go over all of the Madagascar mud. But if you watch my mud reviews, you can see that the Fossa mud is fairly well done, so I really wanted to do it in here. They do, however, do something weird every time they jump. They do it in slow motion. I'm not sure why. They didn't do that when I made the mud video, I don't think. However, basically in here they do, and I'm not sure if it's because I have so many layers of habitat upon layers, because as you can see this is a fairly small habitat, and I will use this kind of technique on layers and layers to make it a bigger habitat, basically, with the kind of a what's it called, a multiple storage building. So they're gonna have the lower level down here, and then we're gonna build a level beneath this one I built here, and this one I built here, and then one above that as well. So we will have a lot of things to do, and as you can see, you will be able to see the Fossa habitat from a lot of angles. Therefore, I also did a lot to make my Fossa able to move around freely and hide if they want to, because they are still kind of shy animals, and this is very easy to see into, so therefore I'm not that worried when I start with foliage, for instance, that you can't see the Fossa all the time. Then the guest would have to dedicate more time. Basically, if they want to make sure to see them, they will have to move around themselves, and that's actually a really good choice, I think. Again, I built the habitats mostly on the premise of the animal and not the premise of the guest. I know some guests won't agree that that's the right choice because the guests are the ones paying. But basically, if I don't have happy animals, the guests just don't want to watch them anyway. So yeah, it's about finding that good balance there. You will see me use a building style here. I don't really use that often, and that's basically because this is heavily thematic and doesn't really fit that many animals, but personally I feel like it fits the Fossa very well, so I'm pretty happy to get to use it here. Always, I think we all have our to-go techniques to use, but it's very healthy for our mind and our work overall to once in a while go in and rethink how we build things. And again, this is completely different from anything you have seen from me before, I think. And I of course use a lot of these faux rock pieces that comes from the faux rock pack. I think it's from Nicholas Linewriter, but as always you can find it in my prop mods playlist. So if you want to see that, it's in there. If you don't know, the Fossa is the biggest carnivore in or on Madagascar, and this actually are pretty lucky for the Fossa because it is a carnivore, of course, and it have both cat and dog or canine features, and have strong and less strong features. For a carnivore, even though it's the biggest carnivore on Madagascar, it is still fairly small, and it wouldn't actually have a chance in life on any other place in the world, pretty much because even if they reach mainland of Africa, then they would have to compete both from food but also just fight for territory with animals such as cheetahs, lions, and so on. Not to mention that even an elephant sitting on them accidentally would be able to kill them. So therefore they can live actually kind of peaceful on Madagascar without any issues. Of course, they have a little bit of issues with humans, but besides that, they are fairly happy, lucky to just be able to move around as they please and live as they please. I think most of us would picture a Fossa in forest or rainforest areas of Madagascar, but they do also live in the mountains. However, they stay in the tropical area of Madagascar only. The Fossa mostly live alone. They are very solitary creatures, and furthermore, they are also marked as territory. Again, kind of big, kind of small territories, about 4 square kilometers, which isn't that much compared to other carnivores, but again, they are so much smaller again, so give them a chance here. They will patrol every single border of the territory every single day, and furthermore, they will also choose to mark their territory, especially at the borders, but also around that territory, with this scent that comes from a gland placed in the anal area, basically. So therefore you can actually see this same behavior with male cats and some bigger cats out in the wild, but also with animals such as skunks that they can basically spray out of their behind the same way. Fossas aren't really nocturnal or anything like that. They are what some people consider catamaral, I think it's called, where it's what we see with the domesticated cats, basically, where they will be active in the early morning, the late afternoon, or early night, and then again late night, and then be fairly lazy the rest of the day. I think everyone that ever owned a cat can recognize this kind of nature. They will spend most of the day up in the trees or on the cliffs if they live in a more rocky, mountainy area. But up in the air, where they are very agile and able to move around quickly, compared to down on the ground, where they don't really have a good visual about what else going on around, and don't really have the same perks that they will have in trees or other places like that. During these lazy hours of the days, it would be a mid-sun, for instance, they hide out in a hollow tree, a cave, or whatever they found. They don't necessarily always go back to the same hollow tree or cave, but will more likely have plural of them spattered out around their territory. The Fossa have multiple ways of communicating with each other, and one of them is basically these synths that they leave from their animal clans around their territory to kind of warn other Fossas, this is my area. But they will also be able to use vocal sounds. This includes purring that we all know for our beloved cats, but they also have different kinds of voices, if we can call it that. They have a voice of fear. We have a consistent of repeated loud course or inhalations and gasp of breath, which will be more like I'm a little agitated right now voice. And then they will also have a high yelp that basically function as I'm gonna attack you now, bitch. As a this is not a warning, this is what happens where these small gasps and coarse inhalations, they are more like you're pissing me off, where the high yelp are more like now this is going on, basically, if you can say it that way. Of course, the purring are more either a mating sound or a communicating with your baby sound, or baby communicating with their parent sound. As I mentioned earlier, the Fossa is of course carnivore, which means they eat small mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and insects, but are probably most famous for the fact that they eat lemurs. That's also why they are pictured as these bad guys in the Madagascar movies. However, we don't really see how amazing this is, because lemurs are really agile and they will just run up in the tree and run away, which would work for most carnivores or against most carnivores. But the Fossa are actually able to just run after them, chase them around, jump from tree to tree, because they have this muscle built and they're fairly small and their tail helps a lot with balance, so they can move around so beautifully, so fast, and actually catch up with the lemurs in the trees. I know it's not that good for the lemurs, but it's quite amazing actually for the Fossas. The Fossa have a mating system which I think people will have their thoughts about, because mainly a female Fossa will find a place high up in a tree where she's just center stage basically, and then she will be up there glamorous and all the male Fossas will just gather around on the ground beneath her. From here, the female really doesn't do that much. Over a week, the males will stay down there, they will fight each other and kind of try to prove to her that they are the ideal mate. From here, then during this week, she will choose not only one but a few of them and mate with all of them. The ones she finds good enough for her anyway, and mate with them. And when she's done, she gonna leave the place to another female that can do the same. These so-called mating trees where this happens will be reused not only by other females but also by the same females over a number of years. So that would kind of be like coming back for the same club every year or something like that to try to find a mate. What's quite unique here is that the males actually have no saying in which of them actually are gonna get to mate with any of the females. The choice is completely the females all the way through. They can fight for it, of course, but if the female just doesn't like you, it doesn't matter how many fights you win, which again is something I think a lot of people will love this kind of mating system, and some people will have some other thoughts about it. But because the trees are reused every year, they are so important for the Fossas, more important than every single other tree in the area. But again, it's hard for people to understand this, so they can't really just take the trees for the rest of the forest and leave these mating trees on their own, which actually also is an issue. Of course, Fossas aren't like frogs where it really need to be the same tree. They will be able to find another tree, but it may disturb their mating season and maybe have to delay it a bit. Anyway, all of this mating tree business happens from September to October, and then about 3 months later, the females will give birth to 2 to 4 cubs, and they will be completely independent after 15 to 20 months, but they won't be sexually active before they are about 4 years. At that point, the females will either join their mother's mating tree, or they will go out and find their own. And the sons will of course go out and try to find females in other trees or the same trees as their mom using. Hopefully then they will win more favors with other females up in the trees than their mother, but again, they're animals and they are not all knowing about all of these things that people are, so they don't really think of it the same way. I am aware that I already mentioned this issue with the mating trees being chopped down, but even worse is it that you chop pretty big parts of the forest down in these areas of the world. And it's not only on Madagascar, it's a lot of places around the world this happens. When you do that, you cut the forest up into small pieces, and therefore the Fossa will only live in those small pieces. And because the forest isn't longer combined, they won't really get to the other patches of the forest, and therefore their population is heavily fragmented at this point. But at this point, the biggest issue is the local farmers that really want their animals to be left alone from the Fossa, which I think most of us honestly understand. However, this is still an issue when they choose to kill the Fossa every time they get even near a farm or anything like that. Here I will mention that please keep in mind that the Fossas don't understand what's yours and what's mine. So they just see a lot of food inside of these pastures, so they want to go for it, which is understandable, but it's also understandable why this is an issue for the farmer, who may not be able to feed himself and his family if all of these livestock get eaten by the Fossa. So again, two worlds combined in a very bad way here. When we talk about numbers, I will mention here, keep in mind that the Fossa only lives on Madagascar, so the number will automatically be less than an animal that lives all over Africa, for instance. However, with the numbers of, they're a little unprecise, but the number is estimated to between 2,635 and 8,626 adult. Again, it's a little hard to tell. They are quite shy. They are quite rare in some areas, and in other areas there are more of them, so they are really hard to count here. This means that at this point they are listed on the IUCN Red List as vulnerable. Only vulnerable. The numbers are still decreasing, so at some point they may become endangered, critical endangered, or even worse, extinct. However, keep in mind that the numbers will naturally be small when the animal only lived such a small place, and always have lived in such a small place. It's not because they were on all over Africa and then were cut down to only Madagascar. They have always lived there and thrived there. So it's more about stabilizing the numbers than about expanding their areas to the rest of the world. And this is also why I chose to build this habitat this way, because I think the Fossa is something people really want to see. But at the same time, we really don't want to stress them. We want them to breed, so we hopefully can send some of the cubs back to Madagascar at some point here. It would really be a beautiful breeding program to be a part of here in our zoo. But again, balance. Guests want to see them, but we want them to have enough peace to be themselves. So therefore we have this very, very hidden, big open habitat balance. I hope I mentioned to reach that and enjoy the cinematics. I will be back in a minute or two. Okay guys, I think we're gonna end it here. It was quite difficult to get it all in here, but I think I managed. And clearly this habitat is built on the premise of the Fossa and not the guest. Again, you will be able to find the Fossa if you are willing to put in the time, go around, see it from more angles. But the Fossa can also go around, hide, lay around in various different places. And I think I got a really big habitat out of a really small area. So I'm really happy with this, honestly. Again, the animations here is a little bit funky, but yeah. I just want to mention that I pre-made a few of these before the DLC that will come up next week, probably, maybe. But the issue being that this zoo might crash if the animal mods gets broken, then I just remove them. But if I have to remove the prop mods, this zoo will close down. For a time at least. When we can get the mod updated, up and running, I will get them in. I will try to get back in here because I want to continue this journey. But until then, I have a few ideas about what we're gonna do in the meantime, and I have an idea of a very small project that we can do in the meantime. So I hope you are ready for that. And as always, you know the drill, guys. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification so you know the next time I upload a video. I really hope to see you again at the links below or in the next video. Bye guys!